organized under the blockchain is that how you would describe that? How would you describe this? Because you're so much more eloquent than I am in the way that I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, the problem with Bitcoin is that it does like 5 or 6 impossible things before breakfast. Like it does it all at once. So I think this analogy is correct. What it does, it uses stranded energy to protect the information of everyone. Like if a new block is mined, it's an accumulative layer of protection on the whole UTXO side of the world, on everyone's wallet, on everyone's public information. Because the way it works is we have this public ledger, and it records basically who owes what to who. And if you have a private key, you can move some of the funds in this public ledger. And like take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like technically it's a bit different, but that's how you can visualize it. I say technically it's a bit different because nothing ever really moves. Like messages are signed and so on and so forth. Like you cannot move information really. You can only copy information. This is a very important point because this is at the core of the double spend problem. Like you cannot, I cannot have information in my head and move it to your head. I will always remember the information. The speaker retains the information. That's the core of the double spend problem. But yeah, that's what Bitcoin does. It uses this energy because you need a protective layer around the publicly available information, which is Bitcoin's proof of work. Proof of work does many other things as well, but it also protects the integrity of the public information. And that's the only way how you can protect public information without private information. The other way would be to encrypt something or to sign something, and then you need a private key for it. And then someone holds the private key, and then you have a quorum of signers and all this, everything we have in the fiat world. And you have some key holders, that are almighty and can do all that. And you see this very clearly also with some of the privacy technology. Why do you think Zcash had like a signing ceremony? Like you need the private key in the first place. And so the only way to trustlessly secure the integrity of public information is by more public information that everyone can verify. And you cannot do it with private information, because then that would imply a private key holder. We don't want to have that. Like then you would have central banks again that can decide what is true and what is not true. And so Bitcoin uses this energy, as you say, and it organizes it. It organizes it around the very valuable information that we all value. It is a record of what happened in the system, a record of who owes what to whom, and it protects like accumulatively the past of all these transactions. And that's why what I also wrote in Bitcoin is time. Like the way you can think about Bitcoin from this perspective is that Bitcoin creates its own arrow of time, because in a digital realm you don't have a trustless arrow of time. Like you will always have to refer to an external input that will tell you the time.
Why explain that? Why is that in the digital realm that you have such a difficulty placing time and time stamping?
Look at a piece of paper and let the piece of paper tell you how late it is. It's an impossible problem. You need an external source, and you need to feed it into the system. And this external source can always lie. And that's the problem. Like there is a disconnect between what is written on the piece of paper and what is happening in the real world, so to speak. So that's why I say the map is not the territory. Like the map of something is not the thing in itself. That's also why bananas on a blockchain will never work. The bananas rot in the warehouse, and what happens to the data? That is like what happens to a sheet of paper. Don't think about it as a blockchain. Think like you have a sheet of paper and you draw a banana for every banana that's in the warehouse. And then you wait half a year, and then does the sheet magically update itself? No, it doesn't. It's ridiculous. And so you always have like there is no link between the informational realm and the physical realm. And Bitcoin is like proof of work is the only thing that works, that creates this link in a probabilistic fashion, because it creates information that speaks for itself. It's very much like in a game of cards or what have you. Like rolling dice is the perfect example. It's like if you watch someone roll dice, and let's say they roll 10 dice at once, and they all land on one, like that's a perfect Bitcoin example, because that's what Bitcoin does as well. Then you can, if you know that no shenanigans are going on, and you watched him roll like 20 times already, then he probably did this for a long while until every single dice was landing on one. And that's like information that speaks for itself. You can look at this, you can look at just the information, and you can infer what happened in the real world, what had to happen. This is such an unlikely event. Like this had to happen multiple times probably. If it didn't happen multiple times, then someone was just very, 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 very lucky. But usually people are not that lucky, so he was probably sitting there and doing this for like 5 hours or whatnot, depending on how many dice he rolls, at once. And this is how Bitcoin mining works, like Bitcoin miners, they find this random number that in a process, in a game that you can't cheat. And then they announce, Yahtzee, I found this number, and it fits the difficulty target and so on. And everyone is like, okay, like, yeah, this guy won. And we all have to work on the next round now, because, there's something to win. Like the Bitcoin network will reward you in good sats, in good hard Bitcoin for the work that you're doing, for participating in building up this arrow of time, and also for participating in providing energy for this protective layer around Bitcoin.
So going back to the 2022 question, what is something that's happening in the space that you think is underappreciated right now?
Lightning.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think Lightning is still very underappreciated. I think everything that's happening around podcasting 2.0 and the work Addy is doing, and just direct peer-to-peer micropayments and streaming money and authentication layers and those kind of things, I think all of it is very underutilized and underappreciated. I think it's insanely magical. Like we call it magic internet money for a reason. And it's if you're playing around with this stuff, and if it works, caveat after early days, like payments still fail, Lightning is not perfect, Bitcoin is not perfect, and so on. But it's improving at such a rapid pace. And if you're listening to this in a podcasting 2.0 app, you can stream sats right now. If it's not hard to set this up on either side. And this is insanely magical. And I think it's still, a lot of people are sleeping on this. Like the fact that this exists is amazing. And I think it has the power to disrupt advertisement models. I think it has the power to create whole new spaces in cyberspace that can kind of work and monetize themselves. And I think all of it all of it is very kind of underappreciated still.
What kind of timeline do you have based on like an S curve? When we just look at Bitcoin adoption, you were talking about how it's just taking off at this point. We have so many different entities involved in Bitcoin now that it just seems so inevitable. How about on the Lightning side? And if you can maybe talk to the incentives that are going to drive the adoption in Lightning.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think what's like, there are multiple things here at play. It's first and foremost, we kind of have to, the technology has to mature, and we have to build out certain layers around, like just providing liquidity for users, and also making it easy to use, making it easy to understand. All the concepts are very foreign and novel, and people don't know what Bitcoin is and what sets are and how this works and why do I need to write down words or what have you. But all of that is improving, so I'm incredibly optimistic in that regard. But I think what's even kind of harder to put a year on, or harder to put on a timeline, is the psychological change that is necessary of how to use this technology, and also how to use the internet, and how the internet could look like, and how does it, how is audio content and video content produced, and what is expected, and should it be free or not, and is there an expectation of kind of supporting creators directly. I think this will come as well, because as we see, I think censorship is at an all-time high, self-censorship is at an all-time high, deplatforming is at an all-time high. So it's a very necessary technology as well. But this societal shift, I think, as they say, like the old guard kind of has to die and make room for the younglings that will figure this out on their own and intuitively. It was very similar, like when email came around for the first time, most people were just still using fax machines for the longest time. Even though something way superior was here, they just didn't see the need and they didn't figure it out. And so I think this transition will take longer than the technological maturity will take.
Any other things that you think are maybe happening in the space that is underappreciated?
Well, I think the whole energy question, the merging of the Bitcoin mining sector with the energy sector is still also underappreciated. I think it's getting more traction now, and more people are waking up to it. I think in part because of the work of people like Marty Bend and Steve Barber and so on, that are very open about this and share their thoughts very widely. And I really like the way that Marty's thinking about it. That it's going to be a question of what will happen first. Will Bitcoin miners become energy providers, or will energy providers become Bitcoin miners? And it's like the race is on. Like as you said before, Bitcoin like it eats up this unorganized entropy. It eats up all this stranded energy, and it does something useful with it. And it's like, this is so massive, because the energy sector is such a, like, it's not a straightforward thing, supplying civilization with energy. It's supplying depending on the geography, supplying different industry sectors, and supplying just the population in general with energy. It's a very complex issue, and Bitcoin is the perfect fit because it is the buy of last resort when it comes to energy. Like Bitcoin mining is very unique in its energy load profile. Like you can switch it on and off at a whim. Bitcoin mining is progressless, so you don't need to power it up or power it down. Like, not really. It's not like aluminum smelting or what have you, or other things that were eating up stranded energy before Bitcoin came along. And so I think it will disrupt, basically all of the energy sector in the next 10 or 20 years, and it will take some time for the energy people to realize this as well.
I think they're coming around to it though. If we compared where we were at a year ago to right now, it almost seems like there are tons of energy producers that are looking at Texas, and they're looking at some of these other parts in the world, and they're saying, oh my Lord, what do you mean I can monetize all this excess energy? I think there's something massive brewing on this front, and I think it's happening very quickly.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. And I think there are some kind of situations where it's just like, it's a no-brainer. It's a match made in heaven. And like with the flared gas mining, for example, like it's you have to flare the gas. Usually you don't utilize it at all, and now you can, as you say, you can monetize it. And it's it's good for oil production. It's good for Bitcoin. It's good for the environment. Everyone is making money off it. Like, it's a win-win-win situation. And I think it will spread from these kind of no-brainer opportunities to the wider energy sector. And I think a lot of people are also working on using Bitcoin to accelerate the energy transition and build out energy sites that would otherwise be not feasible. Like if you have to, I don't know, like build out a hydro project, and it would be economically not feasible to do so. Bitcoin miners can step in and go like, okay, for the first 5 years or whatever, like we're gonna take the energy, we're gonna put some containers there and mine, and suddenly it makes sense economically to build out this project. And as you say, all of it is kind of happening, but it's also a slow process, I think, because you don't change your mind on Bitcoin overnight.
No, it takes time.
Yeah, it definitely takes time. And I
think the bottom line for some of these companies, it's going to become so obvious when their competitors are just adding so much to their bottom line by incorporating this strategy into it, that it's almost going to be impossible to ignore.
Yeah, and like again, I have to fall back to one of the Bitcoin memes. It's gonna happen gradually and then suddenly. It doesn't. And I think with the news, like Exxon is now being outspoken about Bitcoin mining and those kind of things. Like a lot of boardrooms, I think a lot of discussions are going on. It's like, okay, what are these people doing? What are they? What do they know that we do not know?
Don't know. Yes. Yeah. Hey, there was a big announcement recently, right around the time of the 2022 Bitcoin conference down in Miami, for Taro, and this is with Lightning Labs. And it's over Lightning, and they're talking about it being able to bring assets to Bitcoin through the Lightning Network. This is all via the Taproot update. I'm kind of curious what you think about this one.
Yeah, it's as far as I can tell. So, like, the disclaimer, I don't know too much about it yet. I haven't really dug deep into it. But as far as I can tell, it's very, very similar to RGB, which was another project which tried to do a similar thing that a lot of people worked on. And I think, I think in general, the market will sort this out, like in the sense of what makes sense to wrap into Bitcoin, so to speak, and what makes sense to kind of build on top of Lightning or not. And I think, again, if there is a need for it, if there's a market for it, it's bound to happen. I mean, they raised a lot of money. There's definitely a lot of interest. There are a lot of very smart people involved on the engineering side that are gonna kind of make sure that this stuff works as well. And I think there are currently different views of how Bitcoin should be utilized, and I think it depends on your view of the world and your use case. Like how do you use Bitcoin? Basically, we see this in the larger picture as well. Like if you're mining, you have a different use for Bitcoin than if you're playing around with podcasting 2.0. Like and if you're trading, and again, it's completely different and so on. And I think Roy Seinfeld wrote a great piece in regards to Lightning. If we should put, for example, encrypted messaging and build the internet on top of Lightning, or if we should just focus on the payments first and just use it for streaming money and so on. And I think the free market will be the jury when it comes to that, because in the end, block space is scarce, and like the fees will come. Don't worry about it. Like and the use cases that do not make sense will be priced out, basically. So that's my very high level take on it. In terms of having assets and like a lot of people are joking around. Okay, oh great, now they're bringing points up to Bitcoin, basically. Like that's one of the things that would be possible too.
I don't see it that way at all. I just see it as you have the ability to tokenize. I mean, just look at the securities market. Like it is so old and antiquated the way that securities work. The fact that I can't trade a security over the weekend because there's not automatic clearing, right? So there's so much potential for the tokenization of things. Once you get into the higher layers, right? Like we've got to get the money right. Like that's just a fact. And I think with Bitcoin, that answer is pretty obvious, at least from my vantage point, it is. But I think there are use cases for the tokenization of other things. And I know that you're on the record and many times talking about why some of that can become distorted, right? But I think that there's definitely a need for being able to tokenize securities or other types of items depending on what the use case might be. I'm kind of curious how you see that.
Yeah, I might have a bit of a controversial opinion when it comes to that. But like again, disclaimer: I don't care too much. I don't know too much about it. Like I don't know too much about, for example, how the securities market currently works and why it is so inefficient and so on. And I think the value proposition of Bitcoin is to have no central authority and no central point of failure. And with tokenization, you always reintroduce centralization, because if you tokenize something, like if it's shares of a company or whatever, there is a company. It is a central thing that we're back to bananas on the blockchain in a sense. Like there is something that exists in the real world, and someone divides this up and creates those shares and creates those tokens, and it's something that exists and that was created. That is not purely inside the Bitcoin system. That is not purely inside the informational realm. That there needs to be a link to the outside world. Like whatever is being tokenized, it is centralized by definition, kind of. So yeah, I'm not a big believer in that. I think there would be more like Bitcoin is very inefficient. It's only efficient if you look at it from a like resilience, survival at every cost, decentralization perspective. Like if you want to do automatic clearing, you can probably do this more efficiently if you're dealing with shares of companies or what have you. There is. The reason why Bitcoin works the way it works is because with money you can't trust anyone. Like it's a purely adversarial environment, basically, and you don't have this with most other things. It's like the law needs to step in when it comes to securities and companies, and that's oh man, like that's going to be a long rant if I go into it now, because
I would explain it like this. I would say, when I look back throughout history over the last 100 years, if I owned a share of Microsoft, it wasn't like Microsoft was out there debasing the number of shares in the open market without stepping in and it becoming known to everybody who's a market participant that Microsoft is going to add an additional 100 shares to the number of shares outstanding. They have to do that, or else they're going to go into the court system and they're going to get sued into oblivion by people because of the laws. I think when you're comparing equity to money itself, which was a government issue, right? There's a very big difference as to how that plays out in legal jurisdictions. So what I see the issue when we're talking about equities, which I see is very different than money. When we look at what the issue is today, it's just clearing. Like you don't have the ability to to make the equity saleable over the weekend, or if it's 501, I can't sell the stock onto the exchange or to another party. And that's just so antiquated. Like, it just needs to be updated.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that kind of the old systems are silly and slow and need to be upgraded. My point is basically that there are ways to upgrade this that don't require a blockchain, because a blockchain has a very specific use, and the reason why Bitcoin operates in such a stupid way, excuse my language, is because of the constraints of money, and that you can't trust anyone, and everyone wants to cheat all the time, and that you like, it's a purely adversarial environment, and you have no central point, period. And that's coming back to Bitcoin's time, like you run into so many problems. Like, you cannot, for example, the reason why Bitcoin is free floating is because if it would have like, if it would be stablecoin, for example, or if it would be backed by gold or whatever, you reintroduce a central party. The reason why Bitcoin builds its own arrow of time, and we have to do all these like weird chains of blocks and so on, is because like, you introducing a time server, a time stamping server, reintroduces centralization. Then you have like 2 or 3 time servers of the world that you need to have to trust, and we want to move away from that. And the reason why we have the difficulty adjustment is because we don't know how computation develops. Like, the computers get faster and faster and faster every time. We don't know how many people mine, and there is no central authority that registers the miners and tells you, like, this is the hash rate we need. And that's why we have the difficulty adjustment, because then it can adjust itself organically just by taking a very rough, very, very rough average of like what happened in the past, and then we adjust the puzzle difficulty so that it evens out approximately to 1 block every 10 minutes. And that's all the problem that like Szabo tried to solve, and it's called the cryptanalytic stability. There's no mathematical puzzle that is stable in computation time, like, because you don't know, like, one compute cycle, how long it takes in the real world, because you don't know how fast the computer actually is. You don't know if it's a very old computer or an ASIC or what have you. That's why with computer games, if you emulate them, they sometimes run very, very fast. Like, you have to do some trickery to slow it down, because your MacBook or whatever you use is like 10 billion times faster than your Nintendo 64 was or whatever. There is a reason why Bitcoin works the way it works, and it's I don't believe really in this tokenization stuff. You can do it, and it might be more efficient than current things and so on, but that's not why Bitcoin was built, and that's not why Bitcoin was built in the way it was built. I think you can, but again, I don't know too much about it, so I'll let the free market figure it out. And if there is a demand for it, and if people are willing to pay the fees for that, then let them tokenize absolutely everything, and let them go wild. I don't care.
So let's talk about proof of stake versus proof of work. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important things. The difference between these two is probably one of the most important things for somebody that's new coming into this space to fully understand. So if you were going to characterize the two of them, please do so, and then talk to us about the concerns that you have for proof of stake, because I know you have quite a few.
Okay, I try. I'll have to collect myself. I did not anticipate this question, I have to be honest. So, okay, proof of stake is basically a scam. Period. Like, it doesn't work, it cannot work. Just in terms of timing, proof of stake systems always need to do some proof of work in secret to fight off these race conditions and so on. Like, okay, where should I even start, man?
Well, no, explain that, because I've never heard that. I've never heard that point of view before. Explain that.
Either they're doing some proof of work secretly, just a little bit, so as an anti-cheat mechanism, or they have a centralized timing server. There is no other way. There is no global time on Earth. There is no global time in the universe. There just isn't, because of relativity. So a light signal takes like 50 milliseconds to travel from one place of the Earth to the other, and that's not like an arbitrary. Like, so there is no global state. Like, you cannot snap with your finger and decide this is the global state of the world, because you will always have like a 50 millisecond fuzzy period where it's indeterminate. You cannot, like, signals need to travel back and forth. There is no global state in the universe, and there is no global state on Earth. And so if you reduce the block time to lower than 50 milliseconds, for example, it would be absolutely impossible to find consensus. And that's also why chains that have slower, shorter block times, they have more orphan blocks, because the risk of running into consensus problems is higher. And Bitcoin's 10 minutes is just like, okay, that's good enough. Even if you have latency issues and so on, 10 minutes is long enough for the Earth to agree on a state. And this is like a physical problem. And proof of stake cannot solve this problem, period. You need to have timestamp servers that are centralized, 2 or 3 of them, that tell you the time. Because for transactions and an order of transactions, you need to know the time. Because otherwise, you would be able to spend money that you do not have. You would be able to spend money that did not arrive yet. For consensus to arise, you need an absolute order of events. And in the universe, there is no absolute order of events. It's all relative. And that's why you kind of need to build up your own arrow of time and so on. And proof of work is the only thing that works. All right, that's one thing. That's just the time aspect. With the proof of stake, one of the biggest problems that becomes out was who gets the tokens? Who gets the initial supply? How do you distribute the money? First of all, who's allowed to print the money, and how do you distribute it? How does proof of stake solve it? Who decides who can print? Who decides about the money supply and who gets it? And if you don't have, are you aware of the term stake grinding and validator selection and all those kind of things?
I've heard some of it through the Ethereum.
Yeah, that's a big problem. You know what solves this? Proof of work. Like, if you're a validator, or if you control most validators, you are the one who selects the next validator. So who gets the money next? And if you control all of it, then you just give yourself the next slot, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. And the systems that run into that, you know how they solve it most of the time? With something that's truly random, which is proof of work. Like, it's all stupid. Like, it's, why are we playing these games? Bitcoin exists. Bitcoin works. Bitcoin is fair. Why are you trying to print your own money? Why are you trying to print your own money into your own bucket? It's all unethical. It's all very, very unethical. And I'm starting to lose my patience because Bitcoin has been around for a very long time. And your proof of work, your proof of stake shitcoin token that you mined yourself or pre-mined yourself, most people don't know. Ethereum had a 70% pre-mine, 70% pre-mine. Very few people, like 5 or 6 people, have had 70% of the Ethereum supply before it launched, and all the other projects are very similar, like there's always a few select people that print the money because it's a hard problem. How do you generate money fairly and distribute it across the earth, just like gold was distributed, distributed fairly all around the earth without anyone deciding who gets the money? It's a really, really hard problem. And Satoshi solved it, and he didn't take anything for himself, and he disappeared. And that's why Bitcoin can't be repeated. Like it's the immaculate consumption of sound money. So why do people continue to improve upon that? And they don't even know the problems the proof of work solves. That's the thing. The proof of stake people have no idea what kind of problems proof of work solves, and so they're not even understanding the problem correctly, and they're trying to come up with a solution. And all the solutions are flawed. And you always, as I said in the beginning, you always have a certain quorum of people that decide what the truth is. And in summary, in one sentence, proof of work relies on physics to tell you what is true. And proof of stake relies on human judgment, and I will tell you what is true. And that's the big difference. And we want to move away from human judgment. And we want to remove humans from the equation when it comes to the very moral and ethical question of money production and who can control the monetary flows. We have to remove humans from the equation. And proof of stake does not remove the humans from the equation; it reintroduces them. And that's why I'm so worked up about it. And I'm apologies to all the listeners that I'm ranting so so hard on that. But it's a moral and ethical question. Who should be able to print the money, and who should be able to deplatform you? Who can stop the money flows? Who can freeze the accounts? Who says what is true and what is not? And Bitcoin and proof of work, it uses physics and mathematics and something you cannot cheat. And all the other systems like proof of stake and also the current fiat system, it's all the same thing. It's a quorum of people that decides what's true. It's the central bank. It's like the 12 people in the room that decide on monetary policy. And we see this all the time. Just look at the proof of stake systems that exist. Like it's human judgment all the way down. And that's why, that's why these systems, they pause and they restart and they change the monetary supply and they blacklist people and deplatform people and blah, 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 blah. We're back to the old system. Proof of stake is the system, the central bank system that we currently have. And it's immoral, it's unethical. And proof of work is a safe and secure and fair system that is based in reality, that is based in mathematics, that is based in physics itself. And it actually solves these problems all the other people try to solve.
Hey everybody, Trey Lockerbie here from We Study Billionaires, and I wanted to tell you about a new company that I absolutely love, and that is called Trade. Trade combines 2 of my favorite things, coffee and technology. So what you do is you go to drinktrade.com, there's a super simple survey that you take, and then it tells you which coffee they're going to send you that you are literally guaranteed to love. Meaning, if you don't love it, they'll send you a new bag of coffee for free. And from there, you can keep it